to begin in March. The former president and the other 18 defendants accused of seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 election have already been told to surrender or present themselves at Georgia's 14th country jail before Friday, August 25, when it's reported they may have mugshots taken and be fingerprinted. The 14th County District Attorney bringing the case has now asked the court that Mr. Trump be arraigned in the first full week of September. Fannie Wells, whom Mr. Trump has accused of leading a politically motivated witch hunt against him, also requested the court to approve a provisional trial date of March 4. And a sports world champion and record holder in the 100-meter hurdles, Toby Amushan, has been cleared to race at this month's World Championships after a case of missing drug tests. According to the Athletics Integrity Unit, a disciplinary tribunal which handles doping cases in track and field found that Amushan did not commit an anti-doping rule violation, and a provisional suspension was lifted with immediate effect. Reacting to the decision, Amushan took to social media to express her gratitude to God and saying she's looking forward to a possible title defense. This is the only title she has not defended in her career after a successful defense of her Nigeria African Championships, African Games, Commonwealth Games, and Diamond League titles. The first round of the 100 meters hurdles at Worlds is Tuesday. That's how we wrap it up on this night. Thank you very much indeed for watching. From my entire teams around the globe, I'm Tolu Ojobi.
Is this what you really want to do?
Yes, Dad. That's what I've been trying to show you.
Fight for your dreams the advanced way with Glow LTE Advanced. The power of 3 data networks in one. Get a Glow SIM or dial *301#.
This is you every time at the airport, waiting in the stress when your flight gets cancelled. Or this is you waiting on queues to get transactions done at the bank. You ought to be at the exclusive side of life, where we understand the luxury of time and privacy, going beyond to give you the best customer experience, from the ambience of our lounges with your favorite meals and drinks to keep you relaxed when you travel, to the comfort of our branch lounges to help you get your transactions done quickly and in style with the personal account officer. You can also use our priority service to fast-track all your transactions. As an exclusive Plus member, you also enjoy unlimited access to all our lounges in over 1,200 locations around the world, free tickets to movie premieres, art exhibitions, and concerts, 24/7 access to medical experts, discounts in luxury hotels and restaurants. Join Exclusive Plus today. Visit our website to get started. Access more than banking.
Hello? Ọ̀gá agent. Mo ti rí ilé náà. Ó wù mí gan. Báwo lẹ ṣe ní kí n wá sanwó báyìí? Kí n gbé owó wá sí ilé iṣẹ́ yín? Ojú. Ẹ̀yin èèyàn mi, ẹ la ojú yín dáadáa, kẹ́ ẹ dẹ̀ tẹ́tí yín sílẹ̀, kẹ́ ẹ gbọ́. Ilé iṣẹ́ Special Control Unit Against Money Laundering, tó ń pè ní SCOMOL, tó wà lábẹ́ EFCC, wọ́n ti ṣe ìfilọ̀ pé owó tó bá kọjá mílíọ̀nù 5 ẹnìkan ò gbọ́dọ̀ máa dágbére, tàbí owó tó bá kọjá mílíọ̀nù 10 ilé iṣẹ́ kọ̀ọ̀kan ò gbọ́dọ̀ máa gbére. torí pé ó lùdì sófin. Ẹni tó bá ṣe eléyìí á san ọ̀tàlérúgba ó dín ẹgbẹ̀rún mẹ́wàá náírà lójoojúmọ́ fún ìgbà tí ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ yìí bá ṣẹlẹ̀. Wọ́n tiẹ̀ lè fagilé ìwé tó fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ tàbí kí wọ́n ti iléeṣẹ́ ẹ̀ pa pátápátá. Ẹ má sọ pé wọn ò sọ fún yín o, ẹ má sọ pé ẹ gbọ́ o, ẹ má gbé owó tó pọ̀ jù ní o.
With jihadi violence taking place in the Sahel. So you have that also the fear that these coups could spread, that contagion effect, that if this coup is allowed to hold, it could actually spread to other states in ECOWAS. And that's the red line for which ECOWAS members, especially Nigeria, they want there to be consequences for it if it's allowed to hold. The EU, the European Union, they've had a facility to support the African Union since 2004. Between 2004 and 2021, the European Union has an African peacekeeping facility for which they've distributed about 2.7 billion euros to the African Union to be distributed amongst member African Union countries. So that's why African Union support has been so key to any intervention. However, that rules for that mechanism changed back in 2021, where the EU can now directly funds either to partner states or regional blocs like ECOWAS. In other words, the EU could actually contribute money to the financing of an intervention force without going through the AU. But if the African Union is not behind this, and that's why we're still waiting for their it's politically unpalatable, even if the EU is willing to finance this.
That was Carl Bostic with his insight on the crisis in Niger. After being trapped in the Ukrainian port of Odessa, a container ship has returned to sea since Russia's invasion 18 months ago. Joseph Shoulder is heading to Turkey after leaving Ukrainian waters. It's the first commercial ship to sail from Odessa since the collapse of the Black Sea grain deal with Russia last month. The Hong Kong-registered vessel sailed along what Ukraine describes as a new temporary humanitarian corridor for merchant ships. The United States has condemned Russia's continued attacks on Ukraine's port infrastructure. A spokesman says Washington is working with partners to identify alternative routes to ensure Ukraine grain exports.
Condemns Russia's continued attacks on Ukrainian grain infrastructure and calls for Russia to immediately return to the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Today, we are learning that multiple Russian drone attacks damaged warehouses and granaries in a Ukrainian port on the Danube near the Romanian border. These attacks are in addition to the loss of a quarter of the arable land in Ukraine, a vital global breadbasket as a result of Russia's illegal war. The contrast here is quite sharp. Our Ukrainian partners are inspiring the world, while Russia starves it by weaponizing food.
The United Nations Security Council has been warned that Nagorno-Karabakh is on the verge of a humanitarian catastrophe. On Wednesday, the Security Council discussed the situation after a former International Criminal Court prosecutor said it may amount to genocide. Armenia is accusing Azerbaijan of blocking the passage of essential supplies. It's estimated more than 120,000 people are going hungry. Tensions flared after Azerbaijan closed the Lakin corridor, the only land link between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia.
Today I'm here to seek the support of this august body in maintaining the prospect of reaching just and comprehensive peace and stability in our region, which is seriously undermined by Azerbaijan with the humanitarian calamity on the ground in Nagorno-Karabakh. The report of International Criminal Court former prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo reflects that it is already a genocide that is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Given the statement I have just heard, I shall start by categorically rejecting all the unfounded and groundless allegations on blockade, or humanitarian crisis propagated by Armenia against my country.
Access to food, medicine, baby formula, and energy should never be held hostage. We urge the government of Azerbaijan to restore free movement through the corridor.
The persistent blockage of the Russian corridor by Azerbaijan continues to isolate the population of Nagorno-Karabakh from the rest of the world with no legitimate reason to justify such a situation, which runs counter to the principles of international humanitarian law. This situation, combined with the interruptions to the supply of gas and electricity, the drying up of water resources, the difficulties encountered by the population gaining access to seeds, the shortage of fuel, which is hampering agricultural work, is now degenerating into a humanitarian crisis.
And the UN Security Council has held its first open meeting on the human rights situation in North Korea in 6 years. It condemned the North for what it calls widespread and systemic rights violations. The Council also railed against the country's nuclear arms program.
Government commits acts of cruelty and repression in its own territory, while also perpetrating similar acts in other countries targeting both citizens of the DPRK and others. These include executions, assassinations, abductions, including from Japan and the Republic of Korea, intimidations, and forced repatriation. The DPRK government engages in domestic and overseas forced labor and labor exploitation to generate revenue for its unlawful weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile programs. And the DPRK's repressive political climate allows the government to divert resources to weapons development at the expense of the welfare of the people in the DPRK who suffer from severe economic hardship and malnutrition. None of this is acceptable, and there continues to be a lack of accountability.
In the world, plenty more still to come, including more than 60 people have died after their migrant boat capsized off the coast of Cape Verde in the Atlantic.
We all want to do our best to win for our team. But right now, we're losing to the illegal trade in wildlife. Illegal bushmeat is on sale in our cities, risking extinction and our health. We've become a centre for ivory and pangolin smuggling, and many of our iconic species are threatened with extinction. So please report wildlife crime and say no to illegal bushmeat. And let's work together to win for Nigeria. Keep them wild, keep us safe.
It's good to have you on the world. And more than 60 people have died after their migrant boat capsized off the coast of Cape Verde in the Atlantic. Only 38 survived. The boat left Senegal and was believed to have been heading to Europe. The victims' families have criticized the government for a slow response.
It comes with a lot of pain, yes, but we know that migration issues are global issues, which require international cooperation, a lot of discussion and global strategy. Given what the world is going through right now with migratory issues, it means that we all the nations, have to sit down at the table and see what we can do so that we don't lose any more lives at sea, above all.
No mar, sobretudo.
Temos 7 que esperam cuidar, já foram enviados.
The survivors are better. They are being hydrated, they are being looked after here in the tent, here at the port. In terms of testing, we're testing for malaria and COVID, and so far we haven't had any positives.
Portanto, até agora não temos nenhum positivo.
Iraqi men are in custody in northern France, charged with manslaughter after the drowning of 6 Afghans when an overcrowded migrant boat sank off Dunkirk last Saturday. To curb the recent surge of migrant crossings to the UK through one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, the French have now brought in aerial spotter planes. But as the Rise News chief correspondent John Cookson reports, the lure of a new life in the UK still spurs migrants, mainly from Africa and the Middle East, to pay ruthless people smugglers to get them across the English Channel at all costs.
Dawn on the beaches of northern France. The rubber boats are getting bigger. Some made in China now carry up to 60 migrants each. That's good for those seeking a new life in the UK, and better still for the people smugglers who are making over $100,000 a trip. Most migrants have been waiting days, sometimes weeks, for their chance to cross the English Channel in makeshift camps like this one near Dunkirk. They're rat-infested, dangerous places. Migrants here have to pay their fares to people smugglers like this Afghan man. Note his handgun, possibly the same one used in a recent shootout between rival gangs. The migrants here are aware that 6 drowned at sea last weekend, but that doesn't deter them from wanting to reach what they see as the promised land.
If our family knows, they will never allow us, and we also don't want to take that much risk, but we have plans, future, yeah, we plan, we want to learn, so that's why, yeah, we accept that risk to go there.
The British have handed the French almost $1 billion in recent years to stop the boats. But with 170 kilometers of coastline to cover, it's an almost impossible task. Yesterday, so many migrant boats were launched from the French coast, 9 in total, that British Border Force declared what it called a red alert, which enabled them to summon help from the British Lifeboat Service. In towns like Dunkirk, I was interested to hear what the French people think about their government's efforts to reduce migrant numbers.
Qu'est-ce que je pense?
This man, André, summed up the view of many here. He said, as long as the migrants stay out of town, we're happy with that. Out of sight, out of mind, he said. And so again tonight, migrants will hide in dunes like these behind me for their chance to cross the channel and to their so-called promised land. Some will make it, although as we found out last weekend, some will not. John Cookson, the Rise News in northern France.
My colleague Suleiman Alede turned to John Cookson for more.
A report there reflecting the crisis at the moment in the channel. Huge waiting to cross. The arrest today were 4 Iraqi men thought to be Kurds. Remember, we discussed this before, that the Kurds are the gangmasters and planners of the people smuggling operation and play a key role, and it was to do with the deaths of 6 Afghans last Saturday who were crowded boats similar to the one that you're looking at now. These boats are made in China and shipped across 2 continents to get to Dunkirk, and they each carry about 60 migrants in each, some even more, with others clinging to the side to into the 60s and 80s perhaps. So this is a new development tonight, and as I said in my report, there'll be people waiting through the evening and into the dawn hours, so try to make their crossing a little later tomorrow. Really, we're in summertime, of course, at the moment, when the English Channel, to a large extent, is flat calm. The weather's good, and when I sailed across yesterday, you know, the channel on it was still. So it's in those kind of the rubber boats can get across, and frankly, once they're at sea and they can get to the 15-kilometer international limit, then they're home and dry, as it were, because the naval patrols will pick them up and escort them to be handed over to British border force vessels, or indeed the light, as we see in my report from. So that's one reason. The sea is very calm. Second reason is that we're in a long holiday here in France. A lot of it is shut down because August is a traditional time for French people to take holidays, including police and security forces. So there are fewer police on the beaches trying to inject these boats and already mentioned has become even greater now, and so the more boats and the bigger boats that there are, and there were 9 yesterday to the UK, that's when you see more people crossing the channel every day.
You're watching The World. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more news. Do stay with us.
Win 150,000 naira every 2 weeks from June 1st, 2023 until May 31st, 2024 in the Zenith Better Life Promo 3. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account. Fund it with a minimum of 5,000 naira. Request and collect a physical or virtual Zenith Bank debit card. Download and register on the Zenith mobile app or register for *966# Easy Banking. It's really that simple. Live the better life with Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Good afternoon, sir. Please, I need a room to rent in your house.
Okay, where do you work?
I'm the nurse.
That means you won't owe me rent. Congratulations, young lady. You have yourself a house.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. So, how much is the rent?
90,000 naira. Oh, but wait, where are you from?
I am from Akamata.
Akamata what? Akamata in my house? If you know how you got into my house, please get out right away. My spirit and that of Akamata people don't have anything to do together.
Sir, what have I done?
Your people from Akamata are known for bad things. That is what they represent, and you can't live in my house. Just get out right away.
What's going on?
Leave my house, young lady. Yes, our differences extend to our languages, culture, food, and even belief. But we are bound together by the cord of love. With one heart, with one voice, we will make Nigeria a hub of greatness, a place where the people live as one.
This message is brought to you from the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the UK government.
I try to just give more women a voice. So
yes, they had Naomi on it. She would love that. I'm like, whew.
Media, art, it's a very powerful tool.
you can use that to create or project the image of the society that you want. So I'm using that to create that world.
I have a new novel which is being published in the UK in 2023.
I think what has happened with Nollywood is that we didn't realize how much it had traveled.
Welcome back. Police have arrested a woman from the U.S. state of Texas who threatened to kill a judge presiding over one of the criminal cases against Donald Trump. It comes as the U.S. District Attorney prosecuting Donald Trump on charges of election interference in Georgia wants the trial to begin on March the 4th. The former president and 18 other defendants accused of seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 election have already been told to surrender or present themselves at Georgia's Fulton County Jail before next week, Friday, when mug shots and fingerprints may be taken of them. In a separate development, names and addresses of the jury in Georgia have been published online by supporters who have urged Americans to defend the former president. The Fulton County District Attorney bringing the case has now asked the court that Mr. Trump be arraigned in the first full week of September. People in Atlanta had mixed views on Donald Trump's latest criminal indictment and on the prospect of a March trial.
Ah, boy, I don't want to see that happen to nobody. You want the truth. You know, in my opinion, I don't want nobody to go down. You know, so in my opinion, I don't want to see nobody go down, especially the leader of the free world. But right is right, what? Wrong is wrong.
I think it's well deserved. He's done a lot of stuff in the background and underhanded stuff. It's time for him to pay for his whatever he done. Hey, you got to pay. If you do wrong, you got to pay for it. You can't get away with everything. Money can't buy everything.
It shouldn't be like that, just because they don't like him. But you know, he had to do something wrong in order to go. They don't pin that on him because he don't like him. Send him to jail. That don't sound too good to me. You know, you don't like a person that don't automatically just, you know, confine them to jail. But we all make mistakes. We all make bad decisions. I mean, you know, it just won't be right confining him like that.
I just think he needs to go to jail, man. He's done a lot of wrong in his life, ain't he?
U.S. correspondent Eric Ham said this update from the Atlanta courthouse in Georgia.
Here's what's significant about that particular date that the prosecutor is using. That is one day before the Super Tuesday, where you have so many elections on the day that could determine the outcome of the GOP presidential nominating contest. That is the date that she is proposing for the trial to start a day before the contest. So we're talking more than 14 states will be voting the day after her proposed date for this trial. It's also about 2.5 to maybe 3 weeks before the Manhattan trial, where Donald Trump is being charged for hush money payments there, would actually begin. So we're looking at actually a calendar chock full of trial dates for the former president as he will begin the process of actually trying to actually lock down the nomination for the Republican Party. We know today, actually in the January 6th case that was brought in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, the judge there was threatened by a woman who called the courthouse in Washington, D.C., threatening to kill in the January 6th case, Judge Shucken, if in fact Donald Trump is not reelected president in 2024. Now, that woman who actually made those threatening allegations is a woman from Texas who has been charged with threatening to kill the judge, as well as a congresswoman from Texas as well. And so what we're seeing here is already some very violent rhetoric being bandied about involving people who are close to a number of these cases. Also, here where I am in Fulton County, we also know that the grand jurors in this particular case, their information has been as it was leaked in that indictment against Donald Trump. And we know that supporters of Donald Trump have gone to actually finding the addresses as well as the images of those individuals. And now that information has been spread around social media for much of the day. What we're seeing here with the fourth indictment of Donald Trump, and we're expecting him sometime next week to present himself for. What we're seeing here is Donald Trump is actually going after the judges, the prosecutors, and all of these cases that we're seeing play out. And what many are wondering is, what role will the judges play in actually trying to rein Donald Trump in? We have seen already allegations of witness tampering, and of course, threatening the judge, as we have seen in the case in Washington, D.C., that case regarding January 6th. And of course, many are wondering if there are going to be any ramifications for the continued vitriolic language that we continue to see from the former president.
Eric Hand there. A highway on the Hawaiian island of Maui has reopened after last week's wildfires. The death toll is now 110 and is expected to rise as response teams make their way through destroyed homes in the town of Lahaina. Residents are angry at the slow emergency response and lack of help. U.S. President Joe Biden is set to visit Lahaina on Monday. A fire destroyed thousands of homes and buildings and caused an estimated $6 billion of damage. The government says the emergency response will be rolled out over 4 months.
We'll start with where we are in general. 110 individuals have been confirmed deceased. 38% of the territory has been covered. They are adding a significant force on the ground. So they are now up to 30 dogs. They'll move to 40. There's now going to be another 225 relief individuals coming. It's 3 teams to 75. The capacity is increasing continuously to make sure that we can go to every corner of the disaster site.
This is unprecedented. No one has ever seen this that is alive today. Not this size, not this number, not this volume. We're not done.
Now, I want to be honest with everyone. This is also going to be a very long and hard recovery. But our federal, state, and local partners are working around the clock to help all of those who have been impacted by this disaster. From the beginning of this event, my regional administrator has been on the ground and has been leaning forward to support those in need.
All residents in one of Canada's largest cities in the far north have been ordered to evacuate amid warnings that raging wildfires could reach it by the weekend. The 20,000 residents of Yellowknife, the capital of the Northern Territories, have been told to relocate to Alberta by Friday. For days now, huge fires have been burning across the massive, sparsely populated, far northern Canadian region. Officials in the Northwest Territories have been hoping not to trigger this evacuation, telling residents of Yellowknife 2 days ago to remain calm, but the region's environment minister said the nearest blaze now represented a real threat to the city. The evacuation will be phased with those most at risk leaving first by air or by road. Canada has experienced its worst wildfire season on record.
Without rain, the fire reaches the outskirts of Yellowknife by the weekend. It is approaching, but there's time to complete the community evacuation. It's being called now so that we can allow people the opportunity to drive while the highway is open. The highway is subject to closures at any time, but it's likely that it'll be open until tomorrow morning. Conditions will be smoky, and residents should drive with caution and care.
In the UK, the government has invited the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to Britain. The invite came after a phone call between the two leaders, after which Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed that he looks forward to meeting Mohammed bin Salman at the early opportunity. A journey to Britain would be the first since the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018, and comes as Western leaders are increasing engagement with the kingdom. Police in Pakistan have arrested nearly 130 Muslims after an attack on churches and homes of Christians in Punjab province. Paramilitary troops have deployed in the Jaranwala province to restore order. The attacks follow allegations that a Christian resident had desecrated the Quran. Rights groups say blasphemy allegations have often been used to intimidate religious minorities in Pakistan. The US has condemned the violence.
We are deeply concerned that churches and homes were targeted in response to reported Quran desecration in Pakistan. We support peaceful freedom of expression and the right to freedom of religion and belief for everybody. And as we have previously said, we are always concerned of incidents of religiously motivated violence. Violence or the threat of violence is never an acceptable form of expression, and we urge Pakistani authorities to conduct a full investigation into these allegations and call for calm for all of those involved.
Into China in 2 buses as Pyongyang appears to be relaxing its strict COVID border rules. It's reported that Taekwondo athletes heading to Kazakhstan. This is the first time the North has sent a sports team overseas since it sealed itself off from the world in 2020. Ecuador's electoral committee has approved the replacement presidential candidates elected by the party of the murdered politician Fernando Villavicencio for Sunday's election. Christian Zurita was proposed after Villavicencio was shot dead at a rally. The party of the frontrunner, Luisa Gonzalez, has urged that Mr. Zurita was ineligible because of his affiliation to a different party.
The replacement of the candidacy for President of the Republic by the Movimiento Construir Party List 25 complies with the constitutional, legal, and regulatory requirements, and therefore, pursuant to Article 102 of the Democracy Code, the registration and qualification of the candidacy is hereby authorized. Mr. Secretary, please register my vote.
I would like to inform the plenary of the National Electoral Council that, with 5 votes in favor, this report is approved.
The United States has condemned the Nicaraguan government's ongoing repression of religious figures and institutions. It follows the seizure of assets belonging to a prestigious university run by Jesuit priests. A judge has described Central American University as a center for terrorism organized by criminal groups. Nicaragua's opposition says it's the latest attack by the government of Daniel Ortega and all the institutions that oppose his rule. Hundreds of activists, journalists, and politicians have been arrested or forced to flee the country following the 2018 street protests, which took the government by surprise. Mr. Ortega, a former Marxist rebel, has been in power for more than 16 years, has accused the US of plotting to undermine his government with the support of other foreign powers and the Catholic Church.
Murillo's seizure of the Jesuit-run Universidad Centroamericana represents the further erosion of democratic norms and a stifling civic space. This is a premier center of academic excellence, independent inquiry, and hope for future in Nicaragua. The U.S. condemns the regime's ongoing repression of religious figures and institutions, and we call for the immediate unconditional release of individuals of conscience imprisoned in Nicaragua, including Bishop Alvarez. The decision is a further sign that Ortega and Murillo continue to embrace authoritarianism and undermine all independent institutions in Nicaragua. Despite their efforts, they cannot extinguish freedom of thought, and we're going to continue to use diplomatic and economic tools to promote accountability for such acts.
The World Health Organization's first ever summit on traditional medicines is getting underway in India. There's a warning from the UN agency that treatments rooted in natural products can play global healthcare, but only if scientific medicines are referred to worldwide, but many have no proven medical value.
Of traditional medicine is the understanding of the intimate links between the health of humans and our environment. That's why WHO is committed to supporting countries to unlock the potential of traditional medicine through Global Traditional Medicine Center in Jamnagar. Traditional medicine is as old as humanity itself. Throughout history, people in all countries and cultures have used traditional healers, home remedies, and ancient medicinal knowledge to meet their needs for health. and well-being.
Now, scientists may differ about the prospects of discovering the next great thing from traditional medicines, but we need to face a very important real-life fact that traditional medicines are very widely used. It's important to understand what ingredients are actually in traditional medicines, why they work in some cases, and how we can improve their use. And importantly, we need to understand and identify which traditional medicines don't work or.
Here in Nigeria, the defense headquarters says the armed forces will respond with overwhelming force against any group that threatens the country and safety of citizens. It also confirmed the killing of 36 military officers in the recent Niger State attack. The statements came at the bi-weekly briefing on military operations in Nigeria.
The most challenging for the Nigerian Armed Forces in 2023. This follows casualties suffered in some theater operations. At a briefing on the activities of the armed forces, the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Boba, confirmed that 36 members of the armed forces paid the supreme price during an ambush and an air crash during a recovery mission in Niger State. But the military hierarchy is assuring the public that they are doing everything possible to end all terrorists' activities.
Troops, while conducting offensive operation, entered into an ambush in Kudu General Area in Chiruru local government area of Niger State. And then the ambush and the firefight resulted in the death of 3 officers, 22 soldiers, while 7 were wounded in action. As a result of this, there was need for casualty evacuation, whereby the Air Force helicopter was dispatched. While that process was on, that operation was on, and inbound to Abuja, the helicopter crashed.
The military also recorded successes in other theater operations across the country, including the arrest and killing of terrorists and their collaborators. They also rescued kidnapped victims and recovered assaulted weapons.
The military, in the course of its operations, neutralized 28 terrorists, while 92 of them were arrested. 6 gun runners, 3 kidnappers, 6 collaborators, and 7 perpetrators of oil theft.
The military hierarchy also warned the public to desist from sharing terrorists' propaganda, which may dampen the morale of troops, such as sharing of unverified pictures and videos, or the reportage of non-factual events.
When our citizens allow themselves to be used as conduits or as communication equipment to spread propaganda by enemies of the people, by criminal elements that want to divide us as a nation, then it will be very, very difficult to begin to understand why we are where we are today.
And while the Nigerian Air Force says it has opened an investigation in a bid to discover the primary cause of the recent helicopter crash in Niger State.
Still to come. Between inflation worries in the West and deflation in China, global investors are throwing up their hands. We'll look at the global markets after the break.
Here's a card we no go give you stress at all. 0 weights and 0 Q. First bank is get your card. Here's a card we no go give you wahala. Zero trouble now for you. First banking, tell off it's tell off it's spoiler. Who won't break down? Why you want to say now you get not if you do one. Chop chop him head not the way. Swipe they go you know the way. Veteran card with the sweet body. Petrol card with no the shameless. Put you first again. First banking petrol card, we put you first again. Generate your petrol card, we put you first again. First banking petrol card, we put you first again. Just generate your petrol card. Yeah.
Hard to find, but they're still heavy on my mind tonight. The pain is deep inside, but I still want to hide. Happy birthday!
Is this what you really want to do?
Yes, Dad. That's what I've been trying to show you.
Fight for your dreams the advanced way with Glow LTE Advanced. The power of 3 data networks in one. Get a Glow SIM or dial *301#.
Thanks for staying with us. Here in Nigeria, to combat the rising cost of living in Nigeria, the federal government has approved 5 billion naira for each state and the capital. The funds will be shared via a formula, with 52% as grants and 48% to be repaid to the Central Bank of Nigeria in installments. These decisions emerged at the National Economic Council meeting. State House correspondent Adeswa Moro reports.
It is no longer news that it is not the best of times for Africa's largest economy, as it struggles to address the economic challenges stemming from the removal of petrol subsidies. Concerns have arisen over escalating costs of essential commodities and the need for macroeconomic stability in Nigeria. At this month's meeting, those concerns on rising costs of food and transportation dominate deliberations by the highest economic advisory body, chaired by the Vice President. Governor of Borno State, flanked by some of his other colleagues, revealed some of the decisions reached to alleviate immediate hardships on the people.
The federal government has approved the sum of 5 billion naira to be given to each state for the procurement of 100,000 bags of rice, 100,000 bags of rice, 40,000 bags of maize, and fertilizers. This funding has to be shared with a formula as follows. 52% of this money is given to states as grants, while 48% of the 5 billion naira is to be paid back on an installment basis within a period of 2 years, 20 months, to the CBN by the states and the local government areas in Nigeria.
The issue of the social register, I would say that is ongoing in terms of a review. End game is to reduce unemployment, get unemployed resources. Unemployed resources are not just idle hands, but also they raise the capacity utilization of industries, including the moribund ones, to be restructured.
In light of recent labor union protests, the council establishes a committee to engage with labor groups while urging calm among citizens. The council also acknowledges the repercussions of the volatile situation in Niger Republic, particularly for states along the border.
NEMA will also liaise with states to distribute foodstuffs to the people immediately, especially those that are affecting the frontline states that are bordering the Niger Republic because of influx of refugees. The council has also tasked the state to dialogue with the labor union's leadership.
The meeting also reviewed a presentation on assessing the nationwide impact of the 2022 floods. The committee's efforts faced setbacks in addressing the effects on people and infrastructure.
Only 16 out of the total number of affected states forwarded their submission to NEC Secretariat to date, as expected. About 15 others were yet to do so. The submission from defaulting states are being awaited as we speak.
Recognizing the interim nature of these measures, the Economic Council reaffirms its dedication to pursuing enduring solutions. Emphasis is placed on long-term strategies, especially in commercial and irrigated agriculture. The Council also highlights the $800 million loan's intention to assist Nigerians through accurate registration. Additionally, it welcomes the 500 billion naira package distribution announced by the President aimed at alleviating subsidy removal effects. Adesoa, Omorwan, Arise News.
After the US central bank warned that price pressures are becoming embedded in the American economy, requiring further rate hikes in the months to come. I'll try and balance that with worry about deflation in the world's second biggest economy, as investors fear that the Chinese authorities are failing to address an unexpected slowdown there. Before we get to that, let's hear what one economist thought of the recently released hint of the US central bank's recent rate settling meeting, which rates rose by a 0.25 percentage point.
The Fed has been very good at communicating their position, and I think they'll stick to the party line next week, which is a reaccelerating economy, upside risk to inflation necessitates a higher for longer policy. I think they're going to continue to hit that point. They're very focused on the labor market. And thus far, while we've seen a little bit of softening in the labor market, it's still imbalanced in a way that makes them uncomfortable. You still see wages pushing on overall price inflation. So I think next week it's going to be very much more of the same, which is more hawkish than probably the market would like. Indicating that additional rate hikes could be on the horizon, and particularly noting some upside risk to inflation.
Darren Kent, a British actor who appeared on HBO's fantasy hit series Game of Thrones and the English soap opera EastEnders, has died at age 39. His talent agency, Carrie Dodd Associates, confirmed that Kent passed away last Friday, surrounded by family and close friends. No cause of death was given, although he dealt with a rare skin disorder, as well as osteoporosis and arthritis during his career. Born and raised in Essex, Kent notably appeared in the 2014 season 4 finale of Game of Thrones as a goat herd who showed Emilia Clarke, Daenerys Targaryen, the burnt buddy of his child, a victim of her dragons. A reminder of our top stories before we go. West African defense chiefs discussed the coup in Niger. They say that if everything else fails, they're ready to use force. As dozens of migrants die off the coast of Senegal after another boat capsizes. A special report from the English Channel where the lure of a new life in the UK still spurs many, mainly from Africa and the Middle East, to pay ruthless people smugglers to make the dangerous crossing. And a judge threatened injuries exposed by Donald Trump supporters. All this as the Georgia prosecutor, who has charged the former president with election interference, says she wants the trial to begin in March. You've been watching The World with me, Kenneth Warner. Please keep it here on Rise News, and from the entire team here in Abuja, London, and around the world. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.
morning. My life is a whole lot easier now, even when I'm working from home. I still get everything done. Workout track. And faster too. Guys, I'll make my decision and get back to you. I take my meetings uninterrupted. Video call Catherine. Calling Catherine. Checking with Bay. No cracks. Go, go, go! Behind you, behind you! And when it's time to bond with my friends across the globe, I connect seamlessly, all thanks to my Airtel router. Delivery is here. Thank you. Be like me. Stay connected always with the Airtel home broadband. Who are you talking to? It's nothing. You're talking to me? No.
Airtel, a reason to imagine. Win 150,000 Naira every 2 weeks from June 1st, 2023 until May 31st, 2024 in the Zenith Better Life Promo 3. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account, fund it with a minimum of 5,000 Naira. Request and collect a physical or virtual Zenith Bank debit card. Download and register on the Zenith mobile app or register for *966# Easy Banking. It's really that simple. Live the better life with Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I try to just give more women a voice, so
yes, they have Naomi on it. She would love that. I'm like, whew.
Media, art, it's a very powerful tool. You can use that to create or project the image of the society that you want. So I'm using that to create that world.
I have a new novel, which is being published in the UK in 2023.
I think what has happened with Nollywood is that we didn't realize how much it had traveled. Live from Nigeria's financial capital, Lagos. It's Thursday, the 17th of August, and this is Arisetv Exchange with me, Bosidumafai. Let's get started as always on our market streets. We got 0.06% today for the Nigerian market. The banking sector remained in the negative territory. We got a few gains, as it were, to shore up today's trading day, but still below the 65,000 level. Dangote Sugar brought 4.4% to the table. The shares of FBN Holdings, the parent company of First Bank of Nigeria, was up 4.4%. Investors were positive on the annual shareholder meeting conducted 2 days ago, and the 150 billion capital raising that Nigeria's oldest bank is pursuing. That's in the news today. So you got First Bank and you've got Dangote Sugar. That helped the market. 3.72 billion naira as far as total transaction value is concerned, 5,176
This is the first gentle gain we saw since the start of the week. The market fell roughly 200 billion since Monday through to Wednesday. Today is a different day, Thursday. We'll see what tomorrow looks like. Insurance sector up by 0.5% today. Consumer goods added 0.4% thanks to Dangote Sugar. Oil and gas up by 0.1%. Banking down by 0.5%. Industrial goods was flattish. What's at the top 5 volume drivers? Investors bought 34.26 million today on the news of Transcorp Consortium buying 60% of Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, the Abuja Disco. That's in the news. Fidelity Bank 80.04 million shares. UBA shares 24.3, Universal Insurance, and of course 19 million shares traded in FBN Holdings. The stock up 4.4%, as I said earlier. Look at the top 5 movers in percentage, and that's John Holt, CWG Consumer Warehouse Group. You got the Prestige Insurance and Linkage Assurance lifted the insurance sector with those margins. As I said earlier, 0.5% for the insurance subsector. And you've got Kutix in industrial goods, 8%. But look at the market cap of this company, not enough to lift this entire sector, where you have other big names such